BSI has been involved with the gender responsive standards work since the very beginning with the UNECE Declaration on Gender Responsive Standards and Standards Development, which BSI helped author. And we have since then become involved with the work at ISO, IEC, CEN, and CENELEC to support gender responsive standards and the production of the guidelines for the development of gender responsive standards. Gender responsive standards, in simple terms, are standards that work equally well for men and women. But what that means is that they intentionally and explicitly address the implications of gender differences in order to ensure that men and women are being equally well served by those standards.
Standards touch everything that we do, whether it be products, services, the buildings we work in. So it's very important that all of these things are suitable for use by everybody, regardless of gender.
Initial research by the UNECE and others has shown that a gender-neutral approach does not lead to equal outcomes or benefits or impacts for both men and women from standards.
We will bring a lot more nuance to the room and to the standards content if we can make sure that we have varied views across different sectors, different genders, different diversity backgrounds.
We need to be intentional and explicit in looking at the implications of gender differences, both the physical and based on societal norms and roles, in order to ensure that the standards we're producing serve men and women equally well. So late last year, there were guidelines released on the development of gender responsive standards, and we are working on helping to implement those guidelines. We have also seen the emergence of standards which you could say are identifying a particular aspect or particular gap when it comes to gender equality. For example, the British standard on menstrual and menopausal health in the workplace, or the international ISO standard on the promotion and implementation of gender equality.
I'm working on a new standard on menstrual and menopausal health in the workplace. The key objective for this is to break down stigmas and create more awareness in workplaces to make sure that women can get the support they need. The standard has been designed to be very practical, to give ideas to, for instance, someone that is a line manager or works in HR, to make sure that they know what to do if someone comes to them for support. So the panel is actually comprised of a lot of different experts. So this is important to have a well-rounded standard with the content that it needs. So we have invited people that have the expertise of the business side, but then we also have invited the people that have specialized in this area. So the people that have basically made it their life to help people with menstrual health or menopausal health. So it's a really nice combined approach. The standard addresses a number of the sustainability goals. So if we think about, for instance, decent work, so of course it is aimed at women and people who menstruate, but in general, we are looking to improve the well-being of everybody in the workplace, creating flexibility and ensuring that people can be their own selves and be open in the workplace. If we have more awareness of what women are going through, it will create a nice environment for everybody to be in. They might feel this is an incredibly difficult time in their lives, but it's also a very important time. This is the time they're at the height of their career, so how can we make sure that they know where to go for support to make sure they can flourish in that career? I think this standard is really key because we see in the media there's a lot more stories coming out about menopause, and I think one step further we need to go is now to also talk about menstruation. There's so much stigma around this. There's also people who are experiencing a lot of anxiety, losing confidence, losing sleep. So if we have that awareness, we can make a big difference in people's lives. 50% of the population grows through menopause, and we haven't talked about it in the past in a standard. So this is really the time to tackle it for the future, so that support is already available for future generations.
So BSI is supporting gender equality in standards and standardisation, mainly by having been one of the initiators of the UN European Economic Committee's Declaration on Gender Responsive Standards, and by then ensuring that the standards that are in their portfolio are both written in gender neutral language and are gender responsive. The Gender Equality Standard is actually a guideline that provides a framework, resources, policy, tools, examples of good practice to enable organisations to contextualise and promote and implement gender equality within their organisation. And if we could start by getting organisations who employ women to treat their employees with equally, then that's just begins to open the door and hopefully eventually will achieve gender equality.
Many people don't see why gender responsive standards are needed, particularly in quite technical areas where there's a presumption that gender has no implications. So the way we've overcome that particular challenge is around communication and providing examples of how even in technical areas, gender can be very relevant to the work in order to ensure that we're producing a standard that works equally well for men and women. The other challenge has been standards makers needing guidance of what to do, how to develop a gender responsive standard. And for that, we created the guidelines for the development of gender responsive standards, and we're looking at continuing communication and education to support standards makers. Gender responsive standards empower women because we say explicitly that we need more women, not just to address women's needs, but because we know that better gender balance leads to better outputs and outcomes, more creativity, better decision making. So we want more women experts from every field to get involved with standards and share their knowledge to help us make better standards. But gender responsive standards also empower women because we say we want to make sure that we're explicitly addressing gender differences so that we're not perpetuating inequalities.